Today's topic, water infrastructure.
Construction on our new home is nearly finished. The jib stoppers are in and we're starting to think about a move-in date. But
There's still a few critical systems that need to be sorted out. The roof is dumping straight onto the foundations. The only working toilet is a blue one that the builders use every day. In this episode, I'm job shadowing Matty and his team while they install some critical water infrastructure around our property. We're going to be burying concrete water tanks, laying effluent fields, trenching in water pipes and digging out soakage pits. All of this needs to be sorted out before we move in. Autumn is quickly turning to winter, so we're in a race to complete the earthworks and put down some grass seed so that we aren't left with a muddy bog through the dark months of winter. As Matty, our drain layer, is going to tell us, it's not so fun in the rain and it all turns to mud very quickly.
Probably been doing this about 15 odd years now. There's some days it's beautiful in the sunshine. Today it's just raining now. So it's never so fun in the rain because things turn to mud very quickly. Yeah, you can't being outside on a beautiful day. You wear these to keep the sand and that falling out of inside of your boots so you're not emptying them out forever.
The new house replaces an old bungalow which had what I thought was a perfectly functional septic tank, never caused me any problems, and a potable water system. I hate spending money, so I was kind of hoping that I could get away with just using the existing water infrastructure. But guess what? Council required us to do a wastewater assessment for the building consent. That assessment was that the 40-year-old septic tank system wasn't up to modern standards and had to go. The building consent also required that we retain a shipping container sized amount of water for rural firefighting services to help protect our home. Building consents aside, our existing water infrastructure was old and starting to fail. We had troughs that were leaking, above ground water tanks, float valves that kept triggering, water pumps that would go on and off in the middle of the night and wake you up. We'd get our water bills and there'd be random spikes where we'd use way more water than we ever had before because of some leak or another. So we kind of thought, well, if we're going to replace the water services, we may as well do it right and put in a good system. We're building a home that we want to spend a lifetime in and a home that we want to live a good life in. So here's what we're aiming for. We want a resilient supply of clean drinking water. We want something that is low maintenance for easy upkeep. We want to be more self-sufficient. We want to harvest our rainwater and store it for the drier months if they ever come, and use it to water our gardens. And our gardens are going to grow food, so water self-sufficiency helps us with food self-sufficiency. And we want to be kind to the environment. We want to minimise the harm that our waste has on the environment. And for that, we need to have a good, reliable septic tank system. The wastewater assessment report that we needed to do for our building consent included a layout of where all the services were going to go, things like tank locations, where trench lines were going to run, where there were fire service connection points. But while our builders have been slavishly following the architect's plans down to the nearest millimetre for everything, the water services planning is a bit more ad hoc, and that flexibility turns out to be a good thing. On the day, we get to meet with the drain layers and figure out where the best spot is for everything to go. We find places where we can put the tanks so that they won't disturb the roots of these mature trees on our property. The tanks we're using are going to be buried and it's not safe to drive over them. To protect them, they're best in a fenced off area. We have this chook run near the house, which is going to make a perfect spot for the tank. The chook run is where we had our old water storage tanks. They're old, they're going to need to go. Sending them to landfill seems a waste and also a bit of a costly hassle. So I take a photo, pop them on TradeMe, set a $1 reserve and start answering questions. I've no idea how someone's going to be able to pick them up and take them away, but I guess that's a problem for another day.
Yep. And that'll actually kind of work out with that root actually, that'll work quite nicely. And then if we do another one where that tape starts. Yep. And then same again, 3. Yep. See how they give it.
If we can keep it in here, it's better, I reckon. Because if it's fenced off, then we know not to mow on it.
Yeah, obviously the fence has to come out, so that's not. No, that'll be fine sitting in here. Take it this way. I'm just trying to go a long way.
Heavy machinery is going to bring in the new tanks, so we also need to figure out the least destructive way of getting them onto the property. One of the casualties of this is going to be my old gym. When the old house was removed, we relocated the gym to this shed, but the new location hasn't been as popular and the chooks use it more than we do. Let's have Matty tell us about it, eh? We've got this beautiful architecturally designed shed here. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what's going on here?
Yeah, it used to be a little bit bigger. If you look on the ground over there, there's a small section of roof that we opted to carefully remove, just in case it needs to go back up again. Just more so for access for the hive to be able to get back, because obviously the trucks can't, because they're 10 tonne or 11 tonne, they lift the lid off, so the tank itself's somewhere around 9. But that's quite a heavy load, and unless you had a 50-tonne crane, you don't actually have a lot of reach for that, so the truck needs to get right next to the edge of the hole to be able to get that in safely, and so the hive can actually let them do it, because they've got so much electronics in them nowadays that don't let them do it, so not like the old days.
So that's what happened. Let's have a look at it being done. A good septic tank system is one where gross wastewater goes in at one end and nothing too nasty comes out the other end. In most septic systems, waste comes into a tank, the solids fall to the bottom, there's a bit of scum on top, the less nasty stuff in the middle ends up going out into a dispersal or a leach field where it's absorbed by the soil and then the plants, and eventually it evaporates through transpiration. Our old septic tank system was just a tank in a dispersal field. It had no moving parts. I never gave it a thought. It never required any maintenance, and the only hassle was mowing around that mushroom. Our old septic tank system's dispersal field runs through our orchard, where it does a fantastic job watering and fertilising our trees, and they produce massive amounts of fruit that we love. After doing a little bit of Googling, I found out that there were lots of different types of septic systems. There are systems that use mechanical components like pumps to speed up biological reactions. Some systems have pumps that blow bubbles through the waste in the tank, which allow aerobic bacteria to more quickly process the waste. These mechanical systems with moving parts require regular maintenance, which, given the conditions, isn't always a pleasant job. There are also systems that use worms to break down the waste and convert it into a nutrient-rich fertiliser. With these systems, you have to be pretty careful about what goes down the drains, otherwise you end up killing your lovely little worms. Our neighbours had recently put in a new septic tank system, and they were telling us about a problem that they had in it. They were trying to figure out why their power bill was so high. It turned out that their septic tank was the culprit. The tank had a pump that circulated the waste through the secondary filter media, which was coconut husk, and the coconut husk fibres had clogged up the filter, meaning that the pump was running at full power 24/7. So ultimately, when it came to choosing our septic system, I wanted something that was tried and true, low cost, low maintenance, easy upkeep. I opted for a simple, single stage septic tank. No bells, no whistles, no moving parts, no worms. And here's Matty to tell us about the system that got installed.
So this side, this is the septic tank. Normally you won't see that bit of pipe sticking up with tape on it. That's for the inlet. So that'll run up to the house later on to pick up your bathrooms and everything else. The first thing that you will see is the fresh air inlet. So that just allows air into the top of the tank to help with the natural bacterial process that happens inside the tank. The concrete one, we've just raised the lid to ground level to make it easier for the septic guys when they come and suck it out, because they don't often like digging down too far. And the one on the back, I can pull it out for you, it's quite long. It's just got a filter in here, so that just stops anything running, well, I think it's 1 to 2 mil or something like that, suspended solids and that running out to the effluent field. So you just pull this out every kind of 6 months, give it a hose off and put it back in, and block your nose probably. Don't like the smell.
And here's some footage of that system going in.
The other one will be the inlet to the tank when the boys run that. This one's a 10,000 litre concrete tank, and you're fortunate enough here to have a supply, a council supply, comes through a meter, and it's actually restricted in flow that comes into the property here, and this will have a bullcock in it. Basically it'll stay full all the time. The water will come in from the street. As you draw off, there'll be a pump inside here that'll feed the house and or irrigation or whatever you choose to do with it, fill the swimming pool. So this will basically stay full all the time, and there'll be a pump either inside it or in a pump box or something on the outside, and that'll make its way into the house and wherever else it needs to go.
Water is such a valuable resource. when we aren't inundated by atmospheric rivers every week, we can sometimes end up with summers that get very dry. We want to harvest the rain when it falls, store it somewhere, and then use it to water our gardens when it gets drier. If we don't capture the rain, then it just simply falls through our sandy soils and ends up in the river below us. Every year we get about 1 metre of rainfall. For every square metre of the roof, 1 millimetre of rain means 1 litre of water. Each year our roof receives about 300 cubic metres of rainfall. If we're able to capture that, and if it was our only source of water on the property, that would be enough for a large family, including watering gardens. And here's Matty to tell us about the water storage tanks that he's installed.
We've got the closest 2 lids. They're firefighting tanks, so they're linked at the bottom with a 100mm bit of pipe. And so the roof water off the house will run into that. There's a design retention, which is just kind of like a buffer. So if it's raining heavier, it's released at a controlled rate to a soak hole, which will go in at a little bit later point. And then the 45,000 litres is left there for firefighting if the house ever caught on fire or the fire brigade need it for some reason.
And so tell me, is this a new requirement that's come in?
I believe it's been around for quite a while, but yeah, it seems to be definitely coming more and more common. Yeah, more so nowadays, I think. I guess you look at the recent Christchurch, Port Hills fires and that kind of thing. Luckily, we're not quite in that scenario, but yeah, so you can kind of see why they need it. It feels like a waste of tanks, but.
Water coming off the roof, and it's, we want to be using it and we want to be storing it. Shit always goes downhill, they say. We didn't want to use a pump, so our reticulation system always has to have a gradual fall. To achieve that, we needed to dig the septic tank in a little bit deeper than normal, and we needed to make sure that the effluent field also followed a falling contour. My goal is to dig a swale along this contour line and then plant a row of orchard trees to take advantage of the water and the nutrients that they'll get from the effluent field. I wonder a bit whether it's going to be safe to do this. Fingers crossed we won't get sick. We'll definitely be avoiding root vegetables like potatoes and carrots, as well as leafy veggies. And here's Matty to tell us about the system that got installed.
So yeah, once it leaves the house, obviously through all the pipe work, which is yet to happen, comes into the septic tank, which just due to the distance away from the house and that it's end up fairly deep, probably a little bit deeper than what we normally put it, but the nice loamy kind of sandy soils here, it's all right because it's all the soakage is going into the ground. Yeah, once it leaves the septic tank down there where the pipes are sticking up, it comes into a couple of lengths of pipe and then into two 2 metre wide trenches that are 20 metres long. It's got slotted pipe and aggregate in it for the effluent water to come into, disperse out and soak into the ground.
And whereabouts are they?
Basically under all this topsoil, just on the kind of edge of this bank here, trying to use gravity as best we could to come slightly downhill. It's probably about the lowest point around the section, other than going into places you can't get to. So.
And any issues with having it on the side of a bank?
No. It's often, in clay soils and that, the engineers and whatnot design trenches that are normally quite shallow, because then you can also be reliant on evaporation and grass obviously sucking out the moisture. So like probably a standard effluent trench would normally be like 1 metre wide and about 600 odd deep. So the same 300 at the base of this trench, or a standard trench is normally only 300 mils of metal. So it's obviously just the depth that it ends up at in the end. So as I say, yeah, the beautiful kind of sandy, loamy soil, silty soils here, the drainage shouldn't be an issue. So
what have we got here, Matty?
this is the distribution box. So the pipe comes out of the tank into this, which is obviously a little bit deeper than normal, and it splits into 4 pipes, 2 of which go into each trench. And then there's actually 2 down there if you ever needed a future trench, which you'd have to go up a little bit high for.
So the bottom of that is above?
Yeah, slightly above, probably about 150 mils above the base of the actual trench. And then the pipes are surrounded in like a 20-40 clean drainage chip.
Yep.
And 20 metres long, and cloth on top of that to stop the dirt migrating, or the sands and silts migrating back through the top. Yeah, so we spread probably about, must be 70 or 80 cube out on here. So stripped the topsoil back, chucked all the fill in, I trucked it from the paddock next door, and then spread the topsoil back over top. So once the grass grows again, you'll never know.
So 80 cubes, how do I visualise that? What sort of size of a pile is that?
Oh, it would probably, probably be up to 3 or 4 branches high, and probably maybe 5 or 6 metres in diameter. So she's a fair bit.
When he said there'll be a bit of pile of dirt, didn't he?
Yeah, it's about what I expected.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Fuck around though, does he, old Matty?
No, I filmed a time-lapse camera yesterday.
Yeah.
And they were busy.
Yeah. No, he just goes. So. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, definitely love working on these more, bigger architectural builds, and you kind of just got to be a little bit more, particular about how you set things out.
Today's topic, how we collect all of this and store it for better use.